Hi, my name is Angelina Rivas, and I'm going through my essay for Dr. Campbell's class. I titled it Power or Promise to Connect to a Later Statement. I'm going to zoom in really quick so we can both see a little bit better. Maybe a little too close. There we go. When the United States defeated Spain in 1898, many Americans believed the war had been fought to help Cuba gain its freedom. The nations talked about justice and liberation, not expansion. Yet soon after the war, attention drifted to the Philippines, where Filipino revolutionaries had already declared independence. Instead of recognizing their new government, the United States kept its troops on the island. The decision sparked a deep argument across the country about what America should represent and stand for. Some believed the United States had a responsibility to take control and shape the Philippines' future. Others felt that doing so contradicted the country's founding ideals. The voices found in Sherman Report, the writings of Henry Cabot Lodge, Reverend Charles G. Ames, Albert Beveridge, William Jennings Bryan, and B.O. Flower show the full range of these disagreements. Together, their arguments reveal that United States ultimately occupied the Philippines not to support Filipino independence, but to expand American power and secure influence in the Pacific. I'm going to zoom out again. And this leads to my first source being the Sherman Report. Um, as you can see on the left, that is the document, and on the right is my essay, highlighted in red. So the quote being, soon occupied a line extending from Passy on the south to Calicut in the north. Continuing that quotation is, and stretching out to the eastward far enough to protect the water supply of Manila. So my notes, I have my notes right here, but I think that it's explained in a critical and calm tone to make the US sound very structured and um, have some sort of order, just so basically they are portraying a structured, sturdy, functional government. Um, in my opinion, it helped convey and justify staying in the Philippines and showing and understanding that the Filipinos did not have a good structure or a good self-governing system, which leads the US to kind of slide their way in and guide them in some sort of way. Whether that's truly what it was or if it was power, we have yet to find out, or we'll see different beliefs and different opinions later on through the different documents. Um, it also showed that they couldn't sustain themselves through the Sherman Report, and um, this specific quote leads us into believing that as well. It does answer the prompt simply by showing one side of the debate as a guidance over plain domination, which will be talked about later in different quotes using all the different documents. So on to our next document and source would be the Henry Cabot Lodge um, document. So this would be on page 2. It's a short, but it's an informative quote. Um, give some context and give some understanding as to why he may be thinking the US's beliefs in this certain time. So my quote is far-seeing statesman. So basically, in regarding to expanding and going to the Philippines to gain more power and gain more control and show that we are growing from just one country. Um, so in saying this, Lodge explains his ideas on how the US had outgrown isolationism. This belief is important to acknowledge for the point and necessity of economic and military strength. I think in this context, especially back in this time, it was very important to explore and discover not only what was in our country, but to go provide strength, help to other countries and see what we could gain from that as well. Straying away from Filipino rights completely. His argument was based on national power, which complements and supports my claim that expansionists justified imperialism through strategy, comparison, competition, and rather than just strictly democracy. I think that a lot of this has to do with putting up a facade that it is for the better of a specific country or to help, when in all reality, it may be a domination of power. This leads me into my next point. For Reverend Charles G. Ames, my quote would be, face the facts and the underlying problem. So I think this is a very blunt statement. I think it's very impactful because no matter what side you're on, it gives a blank statement of like, you can't really fight this. It's either the facts or it's not, and you can't lie about it and you can't go around it. So I chose this quote because I love how blunt his choice of words and directness was. He chooses to challenge the American people on their own values. Especially because Americans, in my opinion, are very strong in what they believe. They were back then and they still are now. So to challenge someone straight up is very bold and very impactful and says a lot. Importantly shown because it shows the moral side of the debate and tells how America may be seen betraying their own identity. So everything that they said that they were say that they are. This is really going to test them to see what morals they stick to, what beliefs they stick to, and how they're going to take it. I thought that it was very important because it is cutting out all the beliefs, ideas, and opinions, and it's going straight to the facts. Like he says, face the facts. Going on to Albert Beveridge, the quote being, that flag has never paused in its onward march. And then you can see it there on the left on page 7. There we go. And what I have here is this pictures his belief in expansions as national destiny. That similarly to Sherman's ideas, Filipinos were incapable of self-rule, and U.S. had a duty to lead and guide them. Again, giving a different perspective, and he believes that they are trying to guide and they are trying to lead, while others do really think it is power and domination. It also provides to the shaping of racial hierarchy and ideas of superiority, pro-imperialist arguments. So I do believe that in that it is giving a hierarchy of like, look, we need to guide you because you don't look like you can physically do it. That you guys are not capable of doing this job, so we can. And whether that's in leading or whether that's power domination, um, like I said, that has yet to be truly um declared or stated, but it does test the idea. Um, it tests the idea of whether it is pure domination or guidance. And also bringing in the flag into context, the flag of America and the United States just has its own boldness, importance, and without saying anything, has a lot to say. And the flag is something that the USA is very proud of. So I think it says something that the flag has never been paused in its onward march. Um, it'll never stop going forward. And the outlook is to grow, to be more, to do more, and to explore more. Moving on to William Jennings Bryan, the quote that I chose using my source on page 1 is, the young man upon reaching his majority can do what he pleases. I think it's important to read a little bit more into this as well. So, in the document itself, it says he can disregard the teaching of his parents. He can trample upon all that he has been taught to consider sacred. He can disobey the laws of the state, the laws of society, and the laws of God. And giving some context with my essay as well, it says, Brian used this idea to argue that nations, like individuals, deserve independence once they are prepared to govern themselves. Um, I think it's really interesting because it does give context into if you want independence, independence can be given, but you need to know what you want with that independence. Um, I also think it's really bold and telling as to his specific words of using parents and trample upon all that he has been taught to be considered sacred. Um, because those are very important things, and the fact that he's using the nation as a whole in the words young man upon reaching his majority can do what he pleases. I think it's just telling that the nation is going to do whatever they want with whatever they're given, and no laws, no sacred traditions, no whatever can keep them from strictly doing just that. They will, you give them an inch and they take a mile. Um, Brian compares the nations as individuals that the idea of once gaining self-independence, they can deserve it. To then continue his point by arguing democracy and imperialism cannot coexist, which is key to answering the prompt given. Um, yeah, I think going off that as well, just if you are given it and you deserve it, then go right ahead. But then comes consequences with that. And those consequences are based off your actions and how you go about what's given. And finally, my sixth source is going to be Benjamin Flowers. There we go. On page 2. So I changed this quote because I thought that this was more important, and an interesting way of explaining what Brian Jennings also just said. Um, my bad, William Jennings Bryan. But connecting the two in the ideas. So on page 2, I highlighted a people that tolerates a government practicing any injustice to others will ere long be oppressed. And so I think that this is key. It's a piece of evidence showing the reality of what US occupation looked like in real time to the people, which unfortunately involved violence, abuse, and suffering, which wasn't uncommon back then. I feel like that was very common, actually. I used it in this context to demonstrate the gap between the language of imperialism and the major consequences of war. Um, to go along with that quote, I thought that this was an interesting idea. Um, but in my opinion, I said tolerating injustice will come back and affect them in the long run. So it's more of a warning, if anything. I think that it's kind of foreshadowing, saying that if you do allow practicing injustice, it's gonna last longer than you think. Um, and it can lead to more loss of freedoms down the road. Altogether, this video explains the different beliefs, morals, and ideas that all the different authors had, bringing them all together and comparing and contrasting. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time and thank you for your feedback.